This is Soul Signal, where the soul comes to rest. My name is Patrice. In a moment, a story will begin. You don't need to do anything with it. You don't need to remember it or carry it or learn from it. Only let it move through you, the way water moves through open hands. Nobody may be watching what you're building, but it is real. And so is the courage it took to keep going when no one was clapping. Before the fire, the breath. Place both hands on your belly, beloved. Feel the warmth there. That warmth is not performance. It is not something you generate for the benefit of anyone watching. It is simply there. The way a fire is simply there in a room that has been tended. Not for show, not for applause, just burning. Real. Let your shoulders fall. They have been carrying the weight of work that was never acknowledged today. Maybe this week. Maybe longer than that. They can put it down now. Not the work, just the unacknowledged weight of it. That is allowed. 3 rounds, slow. The fire has been burning. It does not need your management tonight. Neither of them do. Not the outer fire, the household, the relationships, the 1,000 things that run because you run them. They will hold through the night. They have held before. They will hold again. And not the inner fire, the becoming, the unfinished growth, the questions that don't have answers yet. They will still be there in the morning. The process does not require your wakefulness to continue. Something moves in you even when you sleep. The coal stays live. The fire keeps its warmth. The becoming continues without your supervision. Let both fires rest tonight, beloved. Not go out. Rest. There is a difference between a fire that has been abandoned and a fire that has been banked. Coals pulled together. Ash laid gently over. The warmth held inside for the morning. You are not abandoning the fire tonight. You are banking it. Trusting it to hold its own warmth while you rest. It will be burning in the morning. It always is. Round 1. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts. Like drawing breath from a room that has been warm for a very long time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7. Let the warmth move into all the places that have been working without witness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale through soft lips for 8. let the need to be seen for it go downstream. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Round 2. Inhale for 4. Gathering yourself back from all the places you gave today without being asked and without being thanked. Hold for 7. Let it settle into the body, the accumulated quiet of your labor. Exhale for 8, releasing the weight of the unseen. Round 3. Inhale for 4. The fire knows you are here. Hold for 7. Trust the warmth. Exhale for 8. Let the stone floor hold you. Now let your breathing return to its own rhythm. No count, no direction. Feel the bed beneath you. Solid, warm, the way all tended things are warm. Your jaw can release now. Your throat, your shoulders, your chest. It has been braced all day against the weight of not being seen. It can open now. Your hips, heavy and wide. Your hands, open. Your feet, resting. In the distance, or not in the distance, just here in this room, something is warm. It has been warm all along. You have been tending it without noticing that you were tending yourself. If it feels right, let these words move through you the way warmth moves through stone. Slowly, completely, staying long after the source has passed. Sacred fire, keeper of what is real. God who sees the work that goes unwitnessed. Remind me tonight that the fire I tend is real, whether or not anyone sees it burning. Where I have felt invisible, remind me that invisibility is not the same as absence. Where I have grown without applause, remind me that growth does not require an audience. Where I have kept going when no one was watching, remind me that you were. Tonight, I do not ask to be seen. I ask only to rest in the knowledge that the work was real. And so it burns. And so it holds. The temple had no audience tonight. It rarely did. The other gods had their worshipers, their processions, their offerings, their names called out in marketplaces and carved into hillsides and spoken at the start of every meal. Hestia's name was spoken at the start of every meal too, but quietly, before the others. A brief acknowledgement, and then the meal continued, and nobody thought much more about it. This was the taxonomy she had been given. First, brief, then forgotten. She had not fought it. She had understood it for what it was. The honest accounting of where she fit in a world that organized itself around the visible. And she was not visible. She was the condition of visibility. The warmth that made the room, the kind of room where people could see clearly. The fire that made the light, that made the other things possible. You cannot celebrate the precondition. You can only benefit from it. You are the precondition, beloved, in more ways than you have been told. In the household, in the relationships, in the spaces where your labor makes other people's comfort possible, and in yourself. The inner work you have done is the precondition for the version of you standing here now. The releasing that made space. The growth that made room. The private becoming that made you capable of what you are capable of today. None of that was celebrated. All of it was real. She had not minded. She had understood, long before the others did, that the fire did not need to be celebrated to be essential. It needed to be tended. Those were different things. She had learned this the hard way. Early on, she had confused them, had believed that tending and celebrating lived in the same house, that the essential work would eventually become visible enough to earn the recognition it deserved. She had waited. The recognition had not come, or it had come in the form of the fire simply continuing to burn, which is to say, it had come invisibly, absorbed into the ordinary, indistinguishable from the background of a life being held together. At some point, she had stopped waiting. Not bitterly. That is important. Not with the hard jaw of a woman who has been disappointed and decided never to want again. With the quiet clarity of a woman who has understood something true about the nature of the work. It does not require celebration to count. It only requires doing. This is what you have learned, beloved. Not as a lesson you chose, as a truth the work taught you. The doing is the counting. The tending is the worth. The fire is real, whether or not anyone turns toward it and says, "Look at this. Look at what has been kept alive." You know that difference, don't you, beloved? Between essential and celebrated. Between the work that holds everything together and the work that gets the recognition. You have been doing the first kind for a long time, possibly longer than you have been counting. The kind of work that, if you stop doing it, everything would feel it immediately. But as long as you keep doing it, nobody thinks to comment, because it is simply there. The way the fire is simply there. The way warm rooms are simply warm. Not because warmth is effortless, because someone has been making it effortless for long enough that effort has become invisible. Think about what you did today. Not the things on the list, the things underneath the list. The tone you managed so someone else didn't have to feel the weight of your exhaustion. The problem you solved quietly before it became a problem anyone noticed. The conversation you held together with the part of you that was already fraying. The meal, the appointment, the remembered thing nobody asked you to remember. The moment someone needed something and you had nothing left, and you gave it anyway, because the alternative was watching something fall apart that you had been keeping together with the last of what you had. That is not small. That is the tending. That is the coal being carried. That is the fire not going out on a night when it easily could have. And then there's the other labor, the one no one sees at all. Not because it happens in secret, but because it happens inside. The private reckoning. The 3 a.m. question you sat with until it became something you could hold. The old version of yourself you released without a ceremony, without a witness, without anyone to mark that something significant had ended and something new was trying to begin. You have been growing. Not the kind of growing that has a graduation. Not the kind with a promotion or a milestone people can point to. The quiet kind. The kind where one day you realize you have stopped being afraid of a thing that used to define you. The kind where your response to something is different than it was a year ago. And nobody noticed the work it took to make it different. That labor is also the tending. That growth is also the fire. She entered the temple the way she always entered, without ceremony, without announcement. Her footsteps on the stone floor, the particular sound of someone who knows exactly where she is going and does not need to be welcomed. The temple knew her step. The stone itself, worn smooth in the path she always walked, from the entrance to the hearth, from the hearth to the window, from the window back, held the memory of her presence, the way all tended things hold the memory of the one who tends them. The fire was burning. Of course it was burning. She had left it burning. She always left it burning. This was not a miracle. This was maintenance. This was the 1,000 small attentions that added up over time to a fire that never went out. And by the fire, as it had been every night she could remember, the cat. gray, settled into itself with the complete relaxation of an animal that has never needed to perform its comfort. Its eyes were the color of embers, not orange, ember. That particular color that is both the memory of fire and the promise of it, deeper than orange, holding more heat than light. And in the fur along its spine, visible only here in this room, in this firelight, something moved. Not the fur, not the cat. Something inside the fur. A slow, low warmth, like flame but contained. Living. Moving the way fire moves when it has nowhere it needs to go. The cat opened one eye, regarded her, closed it again. It had been here before she arrived. It would be here after she left. It required nothing of her except her continued presence. And she found, as she always found, that this was enough. To be required, not celebrated, just necessary. Just the one the fire knows. She had not always understood this. There had been a time when she had wanted what the others wanted. The procession, the carved name, the moment when someone turned to her and said, "I see what you are doing. I see what this costs. I know what it would be if you stopped." That moment had not come, or it had come rarely, in small forms. A thank you that meant something. A moment of being seen that passed quickly and left her wondering if she had imagined how much it mattered. She had not imagined it. It mattered. The want to be seen for your labor is not vanity. It is one of the oldest wants there is. To be known in your work. To have the work witnessed by someone who understands what it actually took. She was not above that want. She simply understood that she could not build the fire on it, because the fire needed building whether or not the moment came. And waiting for the moment was its own kind of extinguishing. You have felt this, divine soul. The choice that is not really a choice. Keep going without the acknowledgement, or stop and wait for it. And you chose to keep going. Not because the acknowledgement didn't matter, because you knew that what you were tending was more important than the pause it would take to be thanked for it. That is not martyrdom. That is love. In its most practical, unglamorous, real form. She began with the coal. Always with the coal. The single live ember she carried from the old fire to the new. Not metaphorically. Literally. In a small clay vessel, lined with ash to protect her hands. She carried it from temple to temple, city to city, year to year. Some of the fire burning now had been burning for decades. Some of it traced back further than that. She had been the bridge, the carrier, the one who ensured that the flame never fully died between one iteration of itself and the next. Nobody celebrated this. Why would they? The fire was simply burning. It had always been burning. That was what fire did. They did not see the carrying. This is the thing about invisible work, divine soul. It does not announce what it prevents. The fire that never went out never needed to announce the 1,000 times it almost did, and didn't because someone was paying attention. The household that ran smoothly never listed the reasons it ran smoothly. It just ran. The project that landed well did not itemize the silent corrections made before anyone noticed there was anything to correct. The child who felt safe did not know the name of the work that made the feeling of safety feel like simply the way things were. Invisible work is only invisible because it was done so well. That is not a consolation. That is the truth. She knelt at the hearth, the coal in its clay vessel glowing faintly, patient as everything that has been carried for a long time by hands that knew what they were doing. She placed it at the center, watched it for a moment, not anxiously, the way you watch something you trust, not checking, just being present with it. Then she fed the fire. Small pieces first. The kindling that catches quickly, that translates coal warmth into flame. Then the larger pieces. Then the long wood that would burn slow and steady through the night. Each piece placed with attention, not ceremony. Attention. There is a difference. Ceremony is performed for an audience. Attention is given to the thing itself. She had learned this distinction the way you learn things that matter. Slowly, through the doing. Ceremony was for the witness. Attention was for the work. She had done both in her life, had learned which one lasted. The ceremony she had performed for approval had faded quickly, the recognition absorbed and gone, leaving her hungry again within the same day, the same hour. The attention she had given to the things themselves, the meal made with care, the conversation held fully present, the prayer offered without audience, the journal written and not shared, the growth worked through in private, those had stayed, built into her, the way the warmth builds into stone, the way fire, given enough time, becomes part of what it burns beside. Think of the attentions you have given, divine soul. Not the performances, the real ones. The moments you were fully present for something that would never know it had been witnessed. The growth you did when nobody was measuring it. The releasing, the deciding, the choosing again and again to keep going. Those are in your body now, built in. the fire that has become part of the stone. When did you last do something with full attention and no audience? Not for anyone to see. Not to be able to report that it was done. Not with one part of your mind already composing how you would describe it later. Just the thing. Your hands. Your attention. The work itself. You have done this. More times than you remember. More times than anyone has seen. That is the coal you have been carrying. The accumulated, unannounced, unwitnessed attention you have given to things that mattered. Not because anyone was watching, because they mattered. She thought about the inner version of the coal, not the fire she tended for others, the fire she tended in herself, the private work of becoming, the years of it, the slow, unpublicized, ungratified work of dismantling what she had been told she was and building in its place something truer. Nobody had watched that. It was not the kind of thing you could explain at a dinner table. It did not have a title or a certificate or a before and after photograph. It had happened in the margins, in the car before she went inside, in the journal she kept and then stopped keeping, and then started again, in the prayer that was not really a prayer, but was the closest she could get to saying out loud what she could not say to anyone else. I am not who I was. I am not yet who I am becoming. But something in me is moving, and I think it might be real. You have had this prayer, divine soul. Maybe not in those words, but you have known the feeling that you are in the middle of something that has no name yet, that you are not who you were and not yet who you will be, that you are carrying something forward from an old life into a new one, and the carrying is the work, and the work is the becoming, and nobody knows what it has cost you to keep going. The coal you carry is that becoming. It is the live ember of who you are in the process of being. The warmth of a self that has survived what it survived and is still, somehow, capable of fire. The fire caught. Of course it caught. She had built it correctly. She always built it correctly. Not because she was talented, because she had paid attention for long enough that her hands knew before she did what the fire needed. The hearth cat stretched, not urgently, just the long, slow stretch of an animal whose comfort is complete. Its ember eyes opened fully now, reflecting the new flame, holding the light the way deep things hold light, not reflecting it back exactly, but absorbing it, making it part of themselves. And in the fur along its spine, the warmth moved, responsive, as if the cat and the fire shared the same source. She sat back on her heels and let herself look at what she had made. Nobody would see this. Nobody would come to this temple tonight and say, "You built this fire perfectly. You built it the way you always build it. You have been building it this way for years, and it has never gone out. and everything that requires warmth has been warm. Nobody would say that. And she sat with the fire she had built and understood, not for the first time, but perhaps more fully than before, that the fire was real. She had stopped waiting for someone else to tell her this. That had been the turning point. Not the day someone finally said, "I see you. I know what this took. The fire you built is extraordinary." That day had not come. The turning point was different, quieter. The day she had looked at the fire and understood that she already knew. Not in the triumphant way. Not in the way of a woman who has conquered something and no longer needs the approval she once craved. In the ordinary way. The way you know a thing when you have lived with it long enough that it stops needing to be confirmed. She had built the fire correctly. She knew she had built it correctly. She had been building it correctly for longer than anyone had been watching. That was not nothing. That was everything. The version of you that has been growing, divine soul. The one doing the invisible becoming. The quiet dismantling. The private prayer. The 3 a.m. reckoning. She already knows. She knows what she has moved through. She knows what it cost. She knows the difference between who she was 5 years ago and who she is right now. In this room. In this dark. She does not need someone else to confirm it. She only needs to stop arguing with what she already knows. Whether or not anyone said so. The hearth cat moved closer, not to her, to the fire, settling into the new warmth the way it settled into everything, completely, without reservation, without requiring anything in return for its presence. It had witnessed the building. It had watched her hands work. It had seen the coal placed at the center. It had watched the fire catch. It had not applauded. It had simply been present for the whole thing. And somehow, that was enough. A witness who required nothing of you but your presence. A fire that required nothing of you but your attention. A work that was real because it was done, not because it was seen. This is not the moment to be seen. This is the moment to keep the fire. She stayed by the fire. This was not unusual. She often stayed. After the tending, after the building, after the work was done, she would sit for a while and simply be with what she had made, not admiring it, not reviewing it, just with it. This was a practice she had developed, not immediately, In the early years, she had not been able to do it, could not sit with what she had made without immediately assessing it, planning the next thing, moving forward before the current thing had fully landed. That was the old exhaustion, the one that mistook motion for progress and stillness for failure. She had learned the difference, not through a teaching, through the fire. The fire had taught her that there was a stage after the building that was not the beginning of the next building. There was the being with, the witnessing of your own work from the inside, the quiet accounting that required no audience because you were the only witness who had been there for all of it. You are that witness tonight, divine soul. You have been there for all of it, the outer labor and the inner, the day this week and the year this decade. You know what it has cost. You know what it has built. You know the difference between where you started and where you are. You are allowed to sit with that tonight, not review it, not plan the next phase. Just be with what you have made, what you are making, what you already are. The fire made the sound fires make when they are burning correctly, not crackling urgently, not roaring with excess. Just the low, steady voice of wood becoming warmth, of material becoming something more useful than it was before. She thought about the other gods sometimes, not with envy. She had moved past envy a long time ago. She thought about them the way you think about people who have chosen differently, with a kind of quiet acknowledgement that their path was theirs and her path was hers, and neither required the other to be wrong. They had wanted to be known. She had wanted to be necessary. Both were real wants, but only one of them was hers. And the want for the inner work to be witnessed, that was hers too. That want was real and fair, and she did not shame herself for it. But she had also learned that waiting for that person was its own kind of stopping. And she had not come this far to stop now. The growth you have done in private, divine soul, does not become less real because it was done alone. The courage it took to change in the absence of permission, to release in the absence of ceremony, to become in the absence of witness, that is not a lesser courage. It is the hardest kind. The fire you built inside yourself in the years when nobody was watching is the same fire, the same warmth, the same real. You have something like this, divine soul, a want that is specifically yours. But underneath it, the want to know that the work was real, that the tending counted, that the coal you have been carrying, through every transition, every starting over, every season when you were building without knowing yet what you were building toward. That coal was live. That it was always live. That you were not carrying ash. You were carrying fire. The hearth cat turned to look at her. Not urgently. Just the slow turn of an animal, checking that the one it has chosen to be near is still there. She was still there. The ember eyes held her for a moment, and in the fur along its spine, the warmth moved slowly, the way a fire moves when it has nowhere it needs to go, back and forth, alive and unhurried, content in its own burning. The cat blinked once, slowly, the way cats blink when they mean, I see you. I have always seen you. I have been here for all of it. She had thought about this kind of witness before. The kind that does not need you to explain yourself. The kind that has simply been present for the full arc of the thing. The beginning, the difficult middle, the slow arrival at something that felt, finally, like solid ground. Most witnesses come in late. They see the fire burning and admire it. They do not know the nights when it almost went out. They do not know the cold that made the warmth necessary. They do not know the carrying, the building, the thousand small attentions that made the fire what it is. The hearth cat knew. Not because it had done anything with the knowing. Not because it had intervened or commented or offered the acknowledgement she had sometimes wished for. It had simply been there, in the room, for all of it, from the beginning. And somehow, that was the thing she had needed most. Not a witness who could articulate what they saw, but a presence that had never looked away. There is something in you like this, divine soul. Something that has been present for the full arc of your becoming. That has not looked away on the nights you almost stopped. That has not required you to explain why the outer labor was worth it, or the inner growth was necessary. That has simply been here, in the room, with you. Whatever you call it, God, soul, the part of you that persists, the small, steady warmth that has never actually gone out. It has seen all of it. It was there when you kept going. It was there when you almost didn't. It has been there the whole time. She blinked back. The fire burned. The temple held its warmth. Outside, the night continued. Stars moved at their own pace above the temple roof. Wind touched the high windows and moved on. The city lived its ordinary life beneath the ordinary sky. And here, in this room, that nobody entered tonight, tended by hands that nobody thanked, witnessed by a cat whose witness required nothing. The fire was real. The work was real. The tending was real. The outer tending, the kept house, the fed people, the held together things, and the inner tending, the worked through fears, the released old selves, the quietly built new ones. Both were real. Both counted. Both were done by the same woman in the same body, in the same life that is quietly extraordinary and has been all along. The heroism of staying when the dramatic thing would have been to leave, that was real too. She had almost left. She did not speak of this often, not because she was ashamed, because the staying had become so much the truth of her that the almost leaving felt like a different person's story. But it had been real. The night she had looked at the fire and understood that she was exhausted, not tired, the other thing. The kind of exhausted that lives underneath the ordinary fatigue and asks a harder question. Why does this only matter to me? Why am I the one carrying the coal? Why is the fire my responsibility when no one would notice if I set it down? She had set it down in her mind for one full night. She had let herself imagine what it would feel like to stop, and she had found that she couldn't. Not because she was obligated, not because the fire needed her in the way a burden needs a carrier, because the fire was part of her. The tending was not separate from who she was. The invisible labor of the outer life and the invisible labor of the inner life were the same labor, the same love, expressed in the only language she had ever fully trusted, the language of attention, of showing up, of building the fire correctly because it deserved to be built correctly, not because anyone was watching. The moment you almost stopped, divine soul, and didn't, that moment counts. It is the coal at the center of everything. The live ember you chose to keep alive, when letting it go would have been so much easier. That choice is the fire. That decision is the heroism. That is the work nobody saw that made everything else possible. Let me bring you somewhere simple now. Not the temple, not the fire, just this room, this quiet, this body that has been tending things all day and has finally been given permission to stop. The fire you have been keeping, Divine Soul, it is real. The work that went unseen today, it was real. Both kinds. The outer kind, the meals, the logistics, the emotional labor of being the one who holds the temperature of the room, the remembered details, the quiet corrections, the 1,000 things that would have been noticed only if they had gone wrong, and the inner kind, the releasing, the slow, private, unglamorous work of becoming someone who responds differently than she used to, who carries less than she carried, who knows something now that she could not have known without going through what she went through. Both were real. Both counted. Neither required an audience to have been worth doing. Let the body receive that tonight, Divine Soul, not as a conclusion to be filed away, as a warmth to be absorbed, the way stone absorbs fire, slowly, completely, staying warm long after the flame has passed. You have been building something real on both levels, in both directions, in the world and inside yourself. Let that be enough tonight. Let it be more than enough. Let it be everything, because it is. The tending, the 1,000 small attentions that added up to something holding together that would otherwise have come apart. That was real. That counted, whether or not anyone said so. Feel the weight of your body, the shoulders releasing at last, the chest expanding, the hands open and empty now. They have been carrying the coal all day. They can rest. The coal is safe. The fire is burning. The tending is done for tonight. Both tendings. The outer one, everything you did today that kept something from falling apart that nobody will ever name. And the inner one, the work of being a person who is still in the process of becoming, who has not finished, who has not arrived, who is carrying the coal from who she was toward who she is still finding. Both are done for tonight. Both can rest. You do not have to tend anything else before you are allowed to sleep. The fire does not need your management. The becoming does not need your supervision. The work does not need your guilt about what went undone. It is all still there. It will be there in the morning. The coal does not go cold because you slept. You are allowed to stop. Somewhere in a temple that no one entered tonight, a fire is burning. A gray cat is curled beside it, ember eyes half closed, the warmth in its fur moving slowly, the way all good things move when they are at peace. And Hestia, the one who stays, the one who tends, the one whose name is spoken first and forgotten quickly, and without whom nothing else would be warm, is resting. Not because she has been recognized, because the fire is burning, and the fire is enough. Tonight, Divine Soul, you do not need to be recognized to be allowed to rest. The fire you keep is real. The coal you carry is live. The work counts. It has always counted. The fire you kept burning in the outer world, real. The fire you kept burning inside yourself, real. The woman who tended both without recognition, without ceremony, without a single person saying, I see what this cost you. I know what you built. I understand that you kept going when stopping would have been so much easier. She is here. She is resting. Not because she is finished, because she has earned it. Both of her. The one who tends the world and the one who tends herself have earned this. Sleep now. The hearth cat is keeping watch. The fire is burning. Both fires. Both real. The fire I tend is real. The work counts whether or not anyone sees it. I am allowed to rest without being recognized first. The coal I carry has always been live. The outer fire and the inner fire. Both real. Both kept by the same woman. Both burning tonight while she finally rests. The fire I tend is real. The outer tending counted. The inner tending counted. The woman who did both without recognition, without ceremony, without a single witness who understood the full cost. She is seen tonight. She has always been seen. The fire knows. Both fires. Both tendings. Both lives. The outer and the inner. One woman. All real. All of it real. All of it counted. All of it enough. Rest here as long as you need. The story has done its work. You don't have to hold it. You can let it go the way you let a breath go, completely, without watching where it goes. soul signal will be here when you return. There are more stories waiting, more nights like this one. Until then, may you dream in light. May you wake in grace. And may you always know you are the signal.